Square Enix surprised a lot of people when it started to shift its focus to global audiences and multi-platform games. Even more surprising was the announcement that it would license the Unreal Engine to develop its newest role-playing game, The Last Remnant. However, don't be fooled into thinking that Square is suddenly making a Gears of War RPG now. This is a JRPG in every sense of the term. The Last Remnant has a fairly interesting setup. The world is filled with traces of a lost civilization called Remnants. These remnants do everything from defend entire cities to aid warriors, and control of these mystical objects figures heavily into the plot. Throw in a kidnapped sister and stoic androgynous men, and you have a very familiar JRPG setup. Oddly enough, once you get a ways into The Last Remnant, you'll find that the story elements are comparatively absent. The vast majority of the game is spent in combat, with few cutscenes and little to do in each town. What story does exist is trite and formulaic, with an ending that is anything but original. After beating the game, I only felt let down. The game is a turn-based RPG, but it has a few things that make it unique. The battle system revolves around squads called unions. Most of the strategy happens outside of a battle when you're planning out your unions. Squad formations and union leaders affect their stats, and you can trade out characters to get different moves. You see, this isn't a game where you directly control 4 guys or so. You give general commands to your unions, and then watch how well the 15 or so characters follow them. That's right, you don't directly control what they do, and this can become problematic. Say that a few people are in dire need of healing, and you give a command to heal. Oftentimes, the high priority guy gets healed first, but there can be circumstances where the game auto-selects someone who doesn't need it as badly. Not having full control of your squad works well in minor fights, but can be horribly frustrating in tough situations. But before you can even get into the battles, you'll notice that The Last Remnant has some major problems. In general, it suffers from a lack of polish and care that an epic RPG like this requires. Right off the bat, you'll notice that there's a lot of slowdown. The game is noticeably better if you install it to your hard drive with the new Xbox experience, but it is still a major problem. And if you don't have a hard drive, I'd recommend avoiding this game entirely. It can turn into a slideshow. It's so bad that I can't believe anybody would release a game in this state. It's also clear that Square Enix has a few other growing pains with the Unreal Engine. Texture pop-in, shimmering, and awkward animations constantly plague the game. You still have Square Enix's cinematic flair and good environmental art design, but all of this is brought down by the terrible technical issues. The game also suffers from a number of weird design choices. You're given the option to save anywhere, but because of that, the game likes to throw curveballs at you. You can see all the enemies on screen before you fight them, but every now and then you'll walk through a door and a giant boss will come from nowhere and destroy you. Or a set of 3 giant bosses with no checkpoints and no option to save will be thrust your way. You'll get so paranoid that you'll probably start saving every few steps. And don't get me started on the disjointed difficulty. The boss fights that end each of the 2 discs are so far beyond the rest of what you've seen in terms of difficulty that you'll have to spend hours and hours and hours fighting lesser enemies just to improve your squad enough to take them down. The progression also has some annoying things to it. The main quest often gives poor or misleading directions and offers no fallback clues to help you if you get lost. Even the descriptions of items in your inventory is vague and largely useless. This is a very old school RPG mentality, but it wasn't fun in Final Fantasy I, and it's still not fun now. There are a number of things to like in Last Remnant, and I genuinely found myself enjoying it sometimes. However, every time I finally got back into the game, something annoying and stupid would take me right back out. This is a very unforgiving game with a host of technical problems that also likes to slap you in the face for no reason. It's unpolished, unfriendly, and just doesn't seem to be that well thought out. If you're okay with that, then by all means check it out. For the rest of us, well, there's always Final Fantasy XIII. For the full written review, head over to IGN.com.